Hi, and welcome to part 2 of my video. This is me reviewing the Eagle Racing TT-02 chassis, and for my last video I just unboxed it. This time I managed to put all the electronic parts on it. You can see I've used Hobbywing brushless motor with the XR10 ESC, and then I've also used Rev D steering servo. I just recently started using this Rev D steering servo, and I don't have the program card for it yet. This is a programmable servo. Reason I like it is that it's super smooth. Let me show you. So it's looking a little slow at the moment, but you can set the programming to speed it up. This is currently in the default setting, and the place where I bought this servo from ran out of the program USB, so it's coming in soon from overseas. But yeah, and you can see how what the engine sounds like. It's actually quite loud. I think most of the sounds coming from the rear diff with the helical gears. It's probably the reason for it is because these are the gears were steel gears, so they're notoriously much louder than the Delrin or plastic gears. But yeah. I guess while I was playing around with this, I have noticed a few things. First was the shocks. My last video I was bragging how the shock was quite smooth, but in fact out of the factory it didn't even have any oil in it. So yeah, I built the shocks, and I've used where is it? Sorry, I've used MSD number 15, which I think was supposed to be an equivalent of 150 cc of like Tamiya. You know, the Tamiya, they have, you know, these numbers, cc's. But I don't know, it feels much thicker than 150 cc. It feels more like the Tamiya yellow, the 400 number for Tamiya. But anyway, it still works well. I think I probably don't want the damping to be any looser than that. I might have to adjust the preload here. Seems a little lazy. I've got a strong spring at the front. This is my typical setup, which is strong spring at the front for counter steer anyway. Strong at the front, and the bottom joints usually in the innermost, and the top joint is on the outermost. And on the rear, it's kind of like the opposite. The bottom joint's on the outermost. Well, it's not quite the most outer. It's a second to, what is it? Second outer, and then the top joint to give it that more of an angle. Reason for that is to have a more of a progressive feel at the back and more direct at the front, and it responds quicker. But I'm not too much of an expert when it comes to suspension, but I've tried many different settings, and I know this works, and this is what most drifters would use, where they have the front suspension set up like this, mostly upright, mostly inner, strong spring, and the back suspension is mostly angled, softer spring. And yeah, it works. Don't think about it too much. Yeah, and had to play with it outside, and it's yeah, it's really surprising. It was really good. It doesn't feel like a TT-02. It feels like driving, obviously it feels driving like one of the more expensive cars. So what I thought I would do is give you a comparison of the TT-02 and the Tamiya TT-02. And let's see what the difference is. What's the pros and cons? I guess going from the front to the back, pros and cons. Well, the biggest difference is obviously the suspension settings, the suspension arm, the camber. Tamiya does have this much thicker carbon suspension mount though, which I like, and I think this is a 3mm and this looks like maybe a 2.5mm. Nevertheless, but you get a lot more seating with the Eagle Racing. There's like about 1, 2, I don't know how many that is, 5 plus 2, 7 holes here. And it's really handy because you can adjust the different heights, different hole, because when you move it in, it helps you with adjusting the droop level. Same at the back, it's exactly the same. And with the Tamiya, you get more adjustment. With the Eagle Racing, you get more adjustment with the bottom part of the suspension as well. And with Tamiya, you get one. That's all you get. No adjustment at all. Take it or leave it. Steering angle. And watch this. So you get that steering angle. You get that steering angle. So this is probably wouldn't go that far. It's more like this. Sorry, I hope you can see this. I'll turn this around. What do you think? Yeah, the steering, you get much better steering angle. I guess you can't really. Here's a quick measurement. I'll put a little ruler. All right. How about try this? Make sure it's straight at the back. Like that. I guess you can't really see it, but it looks like you get maybe about 5 to 10 degree more steering angle, probably about 5. Not as much as it looks, but it does make a big difference. I guess with this, you actually can't go that deep anyway, because when you go that deep steering angle, you get some binding. Actually, no, I fixed that binding. Oh no, yeah, that's right. I did fix that binding issue with the TT-02. What I had to do was you get the Racing 38mm shaft drive, because the 39mm drive shaft is too long for the TT-02, and when you at full angle, it starts binding and actually slows down the front tires. But I fixed that issue. So yeah, no, they gave me a bit more steering angle with that. So it's not too bad, but a little bit more with the Eagle Racing. And it's more parallel. It's easier to set the accurate. Obviously next, caster. You can see I'm running the 16 degrees caster here. You can see how much cooler the front wheel look. Because with more caster, you can run more camber. With the TT-02, you're stuck at, I'm not sure what caster we actually get from the TT-02. It might actually be 0 caster, so, unsurprisingly, or should be at least 4 degrees. This is 16 degrees caster. I love caster because it gives it a lot better style. It handles a bit better as well. I'll go into more explanation about caster later, but if I could remember what it all meant. But more caster is always good. I typically run about at least 12 degrees, 12 to 16 degrees. And I might run 12 degrees here if I want to put some spacer underneath the suspension pins here to give the suspension arm a bit of a kick up. A kick up is when the suspension arm, rather than straight, it's more angled like this. So that will reduce the weight transfer to the front and gives it more traction at the rear. But I'm not really having that issue with traction with this, surprisingly. I'm still running 0 toe and I'm not really having any traction issue at all. So I may only maybe just add about 1 degree of toe at the back. I can only adjust 0 to 2 degrees toe at the back by simply swapping out I can't really see it. Let me take this out. I'll show you how the toe is adjusted. This is another suspension arm here that I bought. I'm going to install this on my TT-06, my other Tamiya car, and they'll give me the same suspension. Well, it's actually a different design, but you know, similar setup option that I can do with it. So the toe can be adjusted because you got these bushings right here and you can pop them out. Oops, there you go. You pop them out and these bushing actually have a number on them. You won't be able to see it, but it says 0 right on the side here. So you just gotta match them up and then you slot it inside. So if I want to change this to 2 degrees, I'll use number 2 bushings here on both front and rear. And that's it. They'll give me the toe. And I can do that with this TT-02, but I can't adjust the toe on this TT-02, Tamiya TT-02. You can see, well, obviously the steering arms are better as well. We got better steering arm. This is a Type S steering arm. I guess it's not fair to compare the suspension itself, because you can upgrade this to TRF suspension and it'll be pretty good. The Tamiya suspension actually feels pretty good. This one, I think it's just due to the softness of the spring. It feels a little lazy. It may be a little bit too soft. But I'll play with that later. But it's pretty good. I played it with it outside and I didn't even get any scratches at the bottom of the carbon chassis. Usually I'll be quite bothered about getting scratches on the carbon chassis, but because this chassis is so, so cheap, I can get Eagle Racing actually offer a chassis replacement as well. I think you can get it for about, I don't know, $25 or something to replace the bottom chassis. So if this gets too ugly over time, I would just, you know, buy another one and replace it. But I have my suspension setting up probably about 6 to 7 mil, just to stop it from scratching on the asphalt. Right, what's next? What's different? Well, you got obviously the gear casing. You'll notice that Eagle Racing, I just noticed that Eagle Racing had to actually fabricate their own mold for the bottom part of the gear case, and they had to fabricate the stand. You know, they had to make quite a lot of unique parts, so they deserve so much credit for this. And I don't know why, you know, they don't charge more. Not that I want them to charge more. I mean, part of the best part about them is that they're so affordable and it's very high quality. Yeah, I found nothing wrong with them. The only thing I found wrong is that the front drive cup, I think, you notice here, if you can see, when the suspension is, there's a bit of a, when the suspension up, the drive cup pushes inwards into, sorry, the drive shaft pushes inwards into the cup here, and it can cause a bit of binding issue. So the drive shaft is 44 mil. I might change that to a shorter one, at least 43 or 42 mil, but they don't have any spare part inside. And you can feel a bit of binding. Actually, it's kind of gone now, probably because I reduced the camber. But if you're running more camber, it's going to push it more towards the middle, and it can cause a bit of binding issue. So that's a little disappointing there. Maybe they should have put a 43 mil drive shaft to give you a bit more breathing room. So I guess obviously another next difference is the molded aluminum case, the deck itself, the chassis itself. I mean, this is a plastic chassis, although I don't mind plastic chassis. Most of my cars use plastic chassis, but is there a bit of flex in it? I've actually upgraded this to the more hardened chassis. It was only $10. Yeah, I mean, it's not much flex on the plastic chassis, nothing wrong with it. And this chassis actually flex a bit more, but it doesn't really matter. It could be a good thing. Sometimes you want more flex with a drift chassis. When it's too stiff, it can be worse. It's not a racing car, it's a drift car. Next thing we get is steering mount, engine case at the back. The thing I wanted to do was just compare the weight. I've actually got some weight here. Sorry, I'll set this up real quick. And I found the car actually very well balanced. Not sure if you can see. Move that forward a bit. So this is a corner weight by Sky RC. I should do a dedicated video just about this and how to use it. Alright, so this will measure the weight for each corner of the car, as well as give you total, and then you can use it for balancing. Now, I did briefly balance this earlier. Let's see if it's still balanced. Yep, so we got 50% left and right, and it has a 52% bias on the back and 48% at the front. So if I want to really make this a 50-50, I would put about maybe a 30 gram weight at the front here, and then that will give me my 50-50 balance of front and rear. So total weight of the car is about 1,300, and let's compare that to the Tamiya TT-02. Oh, sorry, I actually have a battery here as well for balance. So the Tamiya TT-02 is very similar. I haven't balanced this, to be fair, but I can get this at a 50 balance left and right. Now it's looking more like it's 51% the back, 49% the front. Probably because I've got these Tamiya weight here. They're both, sorry, these golden thing here, they're both 25 grams, so that's an extra 50 grams there. So the Tamiya is actually lighter a little bit, because this is at 13.22 plus 50 grams. So it's actually surprising. The weight is comparable, but this thing does have way more aluminium. But it's pretty much the same thing. It's the same car, except this one's way better. Let's see. I'll show you if the smoothness of the engine. Sorry, I was gonna show you just the smoothness of the original Tamiya. I'll probably need to shim the gear diff a bit. So I'll just spin this around. But it's quite rattly and noisy. Actually, it's not that bad. I remember it being much more rattly and noisy. Maybe I fixed it already. You can fix the noise by shimming the gear diff a bit. Make sure it's exactly the right position, no play. It's not too bad. Most of the noise is mostly from the shaking of the wheels. Yeah, that's another thing bad about, turn this off. That's another thing bad about this Tamiya, is that you can't really fix you know, the shakiness, the play around these joints. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It's you know, the stock TT-02 is more of a toy grade, in my opinion. It's not really a hobby grade. And yeah, there's a lot of play, there's a lot of noise from the wheel, especially when they start becoming unbalanced, which this is, because the tire is quite worn in, so the wheel's very unbalanced. You can see the shake of the rear wheel. The rear wheel starts shaking. And front wheel's still good, front wheel's nice and straight, but the rear shakes quite a bit. Steering's pretty good, but you notice how the steering's not as smooth as Rev D. This is actually quite a good servo. It's a Savox. Supposed to be about, I don't know, 0.9 speed, so it's quite fast. But yeah, it's not as smooth as the Rev D. The best part I like about Rev D is the smoothness. So let's try this one and this one here. Oh, that feels so smooth. I love that. Sounds a lot more powerful, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, the wheels are very straight. No play, no movement. fantastic. I guess my biggest complaint is, probably could fix it, but the springs and the suspension, it's not Tamiya quality with the suspension dampers. Oh, one of the biggest complaint I had is that they did the suspension so tight. I wanted to disassemble them, but I could not unscrew the bottom part to take the piston out. It was so tight, and I felt like I was going to damage the shock shaft themselves. And yeah, so I decided not to disassemble them. Maybe I ordered a couple of damper pliers, maybe some better ones that could help me do that. But if that doesn't work, that's pretty much it. I could never rebuild these dampers. But I do notice that the Tamiya dampers are much better quality. Well, I don't know by how much better, but they are better. But I mean, look at this. This is my TB05, and it uses the super short big bore damper, so it has the big springs and bigger piston, even though it's quite short. Has a very nice feel to it. This is running like super soft at the back, but you know, Tamiya super soft is not drifting super soft. This is a racing super soft, and Tamiya don't really make drifting springs. But I do like these super soft dampers. They're just right, and they feel really good, really smooth, good return, good bounce. And I'll show you. And the TB05 is, you know, where it gets to a much higher quality. I love the smoothness of this car. Let me turn this on. It's much quieter. So this is pretty much like a TT-02, you know, it's a drive shaft here, drive shaft there. It's mid-engine, and see how smooth and quiet it is. I love that. So this one I'm also using a Savox. You know, you compare the Savox to the Rev D. I don't know if it's glitching a little bit as well. You notice that sometimes it vibrates. You know, it can be a little glitchy as well. So I'm hoping the Rev D servo will fix that, and I'll probably end up selling all my Savox servo and replace them all with Rev D, because Rev D servo is awesome. Also has that very high torque of about 18 kg, while most of the servo I have is around 7 to 10 kg. But yeah, so I've got these, well, I bought these extra suspension kit. The suspension kit that I got was $39. Pen's not there. $39, and this is like what you get from it, because you even get 4 CVDs out of it. Get the bearings. It is a complete kit, so I will be able to stick this on most of my Tamiya car. I mean, I'm sure I'll be able to stick this even onto this. All I gotta do is, you know, to replace it, just pop these out, probably I wouldn't even disassemble this, just keep them in place because I want to put them back in, and pop these in, and sorry, this one here. Then I'll be able to get, massive caster on this car as well. Oh, remember when I said that I bought some TB03 counter steer gear set? And yeah, I can confirm it works on the TB05, so freaking awesome. I did not think I could counter steer this car, but this car is currently counter steered at 1.8, which is pretty high. I normally only counter steer my car at around 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 is probably hitting the limit, because any higher than that, the car simply doesn't have enough steering angle for it. That's why I'll probably want to introduce this so I can get slightly more steering angle out of it. I think I can get about 5 to 10 degrees more steering angle with these, with the Eagle Racing arms. It is a shame to replace the steering arm, because this is a TB05R, and it comes with these really awesome TRF 420 suspension arm. You notice it has that alloy, alloy suspension adjustment pin here, and the arm is the latest in Tamiya design. It's very stiff, it's very robust, and yeah, it has a really good feel to them. Super smooth as well. But I will probably, has the stabilizer here as well, and I will probably take these arms and put it on my TB02, because my TB02 is going to remain a 50-50 drift car, and because I can't really find the gears to counter steer them, it's probably not possible ever. But this car's now counter steered, and I haven't really set it up for counter steer drifting yet, because it's still set up as a 50-50, but it runs really well. Plenty of grip, surprisingly. Last time I ran counter steer that high, I couldn't even control it, but maybe I got way better. Oh, speaking of stabilizer, I've noticed that, here we go, there's actually a stabilizer spot here, if you can see it. So I probably can fit in a Tamiya stabilizer here. I mean, I got some spare ones that I got from my other car, and I'll be able to easily fit a stabilizer if I want to. Not that it's really needed. Drift cars typically don't run stabilizer. Usually stabilizers only run at the back for some reason. I really need to research that a bit further, but my guess is at the front is that they want a lot of body roll at the front, so when the car is steering here, and because the front, you pretty much want the inner wheel to be spinning, like have the least weight on the ground. Most of the weight will be on the front here, and you want that flat like that when it corners, and it needs that that suspension sway movement to really have that weight transfer between two cars. But if you have to stabilize at the front, that weight transfer is going to be more limited. But sometimes you need it. Sometimes you want to put a stabilizer at the front to make the car understeer more, to reduce the oversteer. It's a really helpful tool to adjust the oversteering, understeering of a car. But yeah, each to their own. All right, next video, I'm really excited to install this onto one of my car and experience, the massive caster you see here. This is at 16 degrees caster. Yeah, so it's going to be really good. I really only need to replace the front ones, but I don't know. I'll replace front and rear anyway. Oh, the next thing that's real shameful is that all my cars, I spend a massive amount of money on these double cardan shaft, and these double cardan shaft are really awesome. Yeah, and I won't be able to use them because I'm using these Eagle Racing drive. I have to use those Eagle Racing drive shaft instead. Double cardan shaft really eliminates the vibration at max angle, and it's especially good for steering. Yeah, and they were pretty expensive. They were like $45, and this car actually came with it, but on my other cars, yeah, they were $45. I'm not sure if I can even sell them, so it's a real shame, but I really want to install this new suspension. I bought one and I'm going to test them out and install them. So it's going to turn all my Tamiya cars into a real drift, counter-steer drift cars. So at the moment they're still pretty much a racing drift car. But with these new suspension at $39 each, gives you the complete set. And I'm gonna need them, so I'm gonna probably buying another set of 3, but I'll install on one and make sure I like it first, and which I don't doubt I will. Then I'll install on all my cars, and I'm gonna have really awesome time with them. All right, I guess you enjoyed my ranting. Probably been speaking a little too long. I'll get some outdoor footage of this sometime soon, just so you can have a better understanding. I still haven't really set this up well. It's just minimum setup. It probably has too much toe. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.